What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more punk rock, and we're back with some more Dead Kennedys. Going back to one of the albums I still have on vinyl. I mentioned it before, I sold a lot of my punk rock vinyl at the end of grad school because I was, sort of in a transition in terms of my career. And ultimately, money was tight, so I had to end up selling some vinyl and punk rock because, I don't mix it in DJ sets the way that I do my techno vinyl, my trance vinyl, and so on. It was seemingly an expendable part of my vinyl collection. Again, I got a lot of regrets. I sold some great Bad Religion records, some great Propaganda records, also some hip-hop vinyl and some reggae vinyl I sold. I sold a lot of great Del the Funky Homo Sapien vinyl, some Bob Marley vinyl, so it's an unfortunate period, but like I said, I did hold on to some of the punk rock records from back then, and one of them is the Dead Kennedys' sophomore studio album, Plastic Surgery Disasters. This is 1982. Alternative Tentacles is the label, the independent label, initially set up by both Jello and East Bay Ray, but I think by 82 or so it had transitioned solely to Jello's ownership, or he was the only person listed on the staff or whatever, or maybe not staff, but basically it became his company solely, not his and East Bay's, which eventually, as you know, I don't really like talking about it too much, but that was partly what led to sort of the breakup of the band. Is after the stress of the trial that came in the wake of the Frankenchrist album, there was disunity in the band, partially because of what happened in the trial, but eventually because the other guys felt like the royalties hadn't been paid to them, which Jello admitted there was an issue. It was like an accounting error. And then, they eventually went to trial, and according to Jello at least, the other guys, they said that they wrote some songs that Jello was adamant that he wrote and that they know that only he wrote. And that was partially what led to the catalog of the Dead Kennedys being taken away from Alternative Tentacles and given to the other guys who set up, first it was Decay, and then I think Manifesto Music, I'm not sure. So they've reissued the Dead Kennedys catalog on these other labels. Again, I don't really take sides. I just love the original iteration of the band. I enjoyed listening to Jello Biafra's spoken word albums. I have most of them, although I actually did sell some of those too, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, I respect sort of both sides of the argument, and I just enjoy the original version of the band. Nothing against the guys that perform now under the name, with different singers they've had in the last 10 years or so. But bottom line, I just listen to the original group, but I don't really, again, I'm not a huge, I don't take a big side one way or the other in the matter. Regardless, we're going to listen to, as I said, a tune from Plastic Surgery Disasters. We're going to listen to Trust Your Mechanic. I talked about this tune when I did a reaction to an acid techno tune that samples this track, Buzz Bomb, and Well Paid Scientist, which is to say there's an acid techno track by the Well Paid Scientist, which is a sort of one-off usage of the name by a couple people known under other names. But yeah, it samples this track, and just the Trust Your Mechanic to fix your car line. But when I did that reaction, I was talking about this tune a little bit and how much I think not only does it sort of, it's indicative of what Jello does with his lyrics. They're sort of dark and often cynical, and sort of they drive the dark underbellies of things. They expose kind of the worst manifestations of things as they happen, which again, he's talked about it before. One of the ways that you have to solve problems is to address them and acknowledge that they exist in the first place. And so he doesn't view that as being a negative thing. He views it as the first step toward making positive changes. This fits in. This song, I think, relates most directly to services that are, in a way, foisted upon modern citizens and consumers in the modern social, cultural, political, and economic environment that is, the world since, I would say, the late 19th, at least since the 20th century, in the way that whether it's little tinkerings to your car that, you brought it in just because it needs an oil change, and then suddenly, if you don't get this change, over time it's going to cause you problems. You might have to pay for a new engine, buy a new car. You might as well do it now, and the labor will even give you a discount on that. It's not going to be too expensive. And it also talks about, psychiatry and elective surgery and cosmetics and things which are presented as essential to you maintaining your status, your convenience, your aesthetic quality vis-a-vis other people and what they might think about you. But the reality, as Jello sees it, is that, through using these services, not only do you put yourself at the mercy of, business operators and ultimately avaricious people who, just want to make more money out of you, just, squeeze a few more dollars and cents out of you by making you believe that certain things are necessary, making you believe that certain things are desirable and will make you look better and feel better, if only you just give them a little bit more money. So he takes a sort of dim, cynical view on a lot of these products and services, in that they're always trying to prescribe you one more thing. Because again, like one of them is about psychiatry, and that, maybe not every doctor is equally diligent and sort of trustworthy and so on. And so the idea, well, you're feeling bad, well, I do have this medication you could get, and you can keep seeing me, and I'll keep charging you the hourly rate for our therapy sessions and so on, and then take this when you get home, this little mother's little helper. So yeah, it addresses a number of different services and products that, again, are sort of like through advertising, through peer pressure, and just through like cultural perception are elevated to this level of necessity, or at least grave importance, if one wants to feel like you're fitting in and looking good and being part of like the beautiful people of society. And again, also in relation to your convenience and so on, like, because you have to take your car in, right? Because you don't want to possibly have to take the bus or use public transportation. So there's all sorts of like layers to the song, but I would say most fundamentally Jello is addressing the way in which people become dependent on less than savory operators of services and businesses that portend, or not portend, but that present themselves as solving serious and necessary problems of modern human life, but which are actually sort of like manufacturing or at least exaggerating the importance of those services and products so they can just squeeze a little bit more money out of everyone out in the world. So that's what the song is about, as far as I know. Again, when I do lyrical analyses, they're not definitive, they're not authoritative, they just speak to the way that I've heard and sort of thought about the song over time. So if you have a different take, or a take that maybe isn't significantly different but like more detailed in certain ways, please do let me know. But let's get to it. This is Dead Kennedys' Trust Your Mechanic, from their 1982 album. It's this. I remember before that it was wrong. 1982 album, Plastic Surgery Disasters. Well, it says that it's the third track on this side, but I seem to remember there was like an issue before where it was the labels were wrong. So maybe this is Trust Your Mechanic. Nope. So again, the labels are wrong, right? Oh wait, no. Okay, so supposedly it's right after that. Some like creepy psychedelic rock section. You can feel the Frankenchrist album coming with a song like this. One thing's fixed, another falls apart. And the rich ain't you. I don't need a magazine to tell me that.
to make you well. You see it awful lot of him now. The quicker he makes your life fall apart, the more money you put in his pocket. Trust the mechanic to put out your hole. Trust you to make more somewhere else. Trust the mechanic to always come through and lift you up.
Yeah, maybe more on another song on this album in the next week or two. We'll have to see. But yeah, I do enjoy that song, and I had sort of forgotten about it. I was thinking more about the kind of thrashier sort of hardcore punk sections, or sort of part of the song when I went to react to it. I had sort of forgotten that wicked psychedelic part, which is like funny because I mentioned the Buzz Bomb track by the Well-Paid Scientist, an acid techno tune on Kosh Records. That starts with that sample, like it's that sort of beginning of the like psychedelic part where it kind of has that like descending sort of like creepy guitar, and you trust your mechanic, and so that's the part that was sampled. So like I should have remembered that, but as I went to start this reaction, I wasn't thinking about that part. So that was sort of a nice like surprise recollection that I had forgotten about. But yeah, I do enjoy the structure, as I said, and in that sort of psychedelic, slower, kind of more wicked atmospheric part, again, I can feel hints of what would come with their next album, even though this album I think is very rightly known as kind of their classic like hardcore sound, whereas the first album, it's a bit more like a bit slower, a bit more kind of like 70s punk feel, whereas this one, again, it has this sort of like rip-roaring early 80s hardcore sound, though again with some sections that maybe suggest where they would go in the future. So anyway, let me know what you think of the tune. Shout out to Jello and the band. Yeah, and I will see you next time. Peace.